Hi, folks. Welcome to the Moving On podcast. I'm Jay Norman. This is my wife.
Hi, I'm Jess Norman. Babe, you sure you remember how to do this?
Oh, I bet we'll figure it out.
You want to start off by telling them our brand new name?
I'd love to. We want to welcome y'all to the brand new Moving On Again podcast.
And on with the show.
Hi, babe.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing so good. How about you?
Good. You ready to record?
We are 1 week late. We're sorry, you guys. Jay was sick on our last recording, and I got what he and Cam had. And so I got very sick, and so we have our guest tonight. We had to reschedule with them and push a week back, so I'm really relieved that we're here doing this.
And we've been a little busy in between.
You have been in corn plant. There was a time where I had to, I think it was like Wednesday morning, I had to check the position of your pillow to see if it was turned a little to know if you had been home. And corn plant, they run till around 1 or 2 a.m. and then head back around 6. And during those hours, I am not functional.
Yeah, you never knew when I came or went.
I did not.
Either one.
I had to call and say, were you here?
Yeah, it was a short time, about 3.5 hours.
Yep, he's always racing the rain. So it rained on Friday.
Yep.
It rained on Friday, so I got to have him a little bit on Friday, and then we went out Friday night and watched some LSU basketball at Blue Goose, and then I got to have him on Saturday. We ran around Ben Austin. Lily had a track meet, and then we ran and did some shopping.
And we've had kids on separate spring breaks, so we've been busy with that and chasing them every direction.
Right.
Trying to keep everybody happy while they were out of school.
Yeah, we had 2 weeks of spring break, and that is a little bit of a you-know-what show. It just, when some of the kids are, well, Liza and Hartley share a room, so when one is like partying it up, you
The
know.
other one's got to go to school.
But that's not really happening.
Yeah.
They think their whole life is a sleepover. They have not figured out that they're sisters.
And my kids hit dry weather on spring break, so they got to work the bulk of the time. Hardly got to sweep and wax a tractor, I think. So
yeah, when Jay and I got married, he was like, do you agree to give up spring break? And I was like, I do. We don't get it.
Non-existing.
We do not get a spring break.
So, babe, you have a protocol you want me to follow tonight to talk about these guests.
So whenever we had Sean and Jacob on, I needed to tell about, and Stacy and Kayla, their wives were here. Sean and Jacob were our Texas Caminos. Is that the title of that?
I think so.
And so they were sitting here as I was talking about them, and I think it's so awkward because I think the way we know each other should be a conversation that we all explain to you. And so I was like, I have so much to say about Matt and Paige. I need you to bring them in before you tell me to talk about them in front of them.
Okay, and so when are you ready to do that, Matt?
Right now.
You are. All right, so we would like to introduce Matt and Paige Robinson. Thank y'all for joining us tonight.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Paige, please don't talk so much.
Paige, keep it down over there.
Paige, that is plainly enough.
So, babe, why don't you tell us how you know them and kind of the story behind it?
So whenever I explained about Sean and Jacob and Kayla and Stacy, that was right, during the divorce. I found the CrossFit. That season preceded the season where I met Matt. And so still married, separated. We were coaching at our first CrossFit that we were at together called Kodiak in McKinney. And it was something so special. There was something so special. Even one of Jay's friends one time, Jerry, he's been on the show, he was like, Jess, what's up with Kodiak? Like, what's going on there? Like, are y'all a cult? Like, why do y'all seem like so, like, what is it? And I was like, well, we just have seen some things. Like, we've all gone through some things, and it really drew us together, and we were a family. We just were obsessed with being around each other. So we did the 5 a.m., and Matt, I think that's when you and Ryan had to come most times.
Yeah, I was an early morning workout guy.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't want to take time from your family, so it's first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And so this would have been 2014.
Yeah, I think so.
14, 15.
Because Paige, you were pregnant with MJ. He was born in 14.
Oh my gosh.
Right. Yeah.
So that makes sense. That checks out.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So I don't know what it was, but there was a connection between Matt and our friend Lisa. I don't think Lisa's been on our podcast. She helps me with the audio a bunch. And then our Matt's best friend at the time, Ryan. And so Ryan, Matt, and Lisa and I, for some reason, it was almost like God was like, here, take care of each other for just a second. And we got on this, I don't even know who started the text thread, but we went into walkie-talkie status. Like Matt probably knew what I ate that day for lunch, or, like we just talked nonstop. I want to say for over a year.
Yeah, chat went on for a while. You know, group chats like kind of run their course pretty quickly.
Yeah.
This one persevered for quite some time.
This one went the distance. And if you would add a fifth, you would add Jeff.
For sure. Yeah, Jeff.
But I don't think he wanted to talk as much as we did. Jeff would get kind of sick of us.
I think so,
and
too.
Ryan would just send like novellas and stuff. And so where I say our friends helped me through the divorce, Matt and Ryan and Lisa clearly were sent at a season in my life that I didn't really even know was coming up, but of course our Lord did, and He provided this network, this little support system for me, and I wouldn't have made it through that, Matt, without you guys.
Thank you.
Like at all, and with Jerry asking, what is happening over there? Like, why are y'all, we were going through the early stages of Matt's sobriety with him. Mm-hmm. There was this one morning, and I won't be able to even get through this. And, some people just go and put their headphones on and walk for 90 minutes. We showed up at the gym, stood in a circle, put Matt in the middle of it as we all took turns telling him like how much he means to us. And we just bawled our eyes out. Like Matt's crying his eyes out in the middle of this circle, like broken and healing. And we're all just taking turns, like pouring our strength into him. And I was like, this is our family, And so that's one of my most important.
Yeah.
Remember that, Maddie?
I will never forget that. I think about that to this day.
I think of Rick.
Rick was great.
Rick was intense.
Just an outpouring of love. I think I was a year sober, maybe 2 at the time. I think it was a year.
Do you remember? I'm going to find the picture of us all cheering you on that morning doing a pull-up. I think I can find it.
It was incredible, though, the outpouring of support. And you were going through a season of your life, and I too was going through the same thing. It was that was the first time I had real friends, I think.
Really?
Like real friends. Like people that had your back no
we
matter
really
what.
were.
And who knew you like authentically. Like, you guys knew me. You didn't know like this what I wanted you to see. You guys really knew me, and you loved me anyway. Mm-hmm. That was incredible.
You're right about that. Now on to Paige. She's not going to like this probably, so she's probably going to make me edit it out of the show. But I will let Paige.
No edits.
I will let Paige go next on her first impression or first remembrance of me. But my first remembrance of Paige was, my buddy has a wife. I don't know who she is. She's never been here. Could you get her here, please? So Matt did. He got you to the gym. And we had another buddy that was our coach. His name was Brian, bigger guy, big burly guy, real strong, could lift the house. And it was his job to take Paige through her first workout. And y'all, she starts doing bear crawls. She starts crying because we've gotten to that part where we're releasing emotion in these workouts are kicking our butts. And Paige gets into this bear crawl and she won't stop. She's crying and she won't stop. So now Brian's crying, and Brian is coaching a crying person while he's crying, and I'm crying because I can't take when men cry. Like, it really gets me. And so we're all crying through these bear crawls. Now you go, Paige.
Okay, yeah, I remember this a little bit because I was dying, and I only went to the gym twice, maybe.
That's why we
Yes.
ruined her with
Yes.
the bear crawls.
Really?
He
So
killed that right off the bat. Yeah.
It was so intense.
Do you remember when Brian got a candy bar to feed you because you were so shaky, like
Yes.
mid workout?
Yes. Y'all were going to kill me. It was awful. But I just remember you being so sweet. You were always so sweet.
I loved you. I loved you.
I loved you
then.
from the first time
I
I,
loved
met
you from the
I
first
was
moment.
like, when he told me about you, I was like, I need to be around her.
Yeah, so then we caught wind that we should be together.
Yes.
And so our first few times of getting coffee or anything like that, I just remember me going, how much do I owe you? And she was like, how much do I owe you? Because when I'm with Paige Robinson, it is straight therapy.
Yes.
Straight
I feel the same way.
therapy.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. Thank you for letting them be here while I talked about them.
You're sure welcome. I know the protocol now. I will
perfect.
remember it the next time. Did you have a good time?
I had so much fun.
All right.
Okay.
Well, listen, she's kind of giving the background for how she met y'all. Why don't y'all give us your background about your family and your children and all that good stuff?
You want to go?
No, you go for it.
She wasn't going to do it. I figured I'd offer
Nope.
it out. So between us two, I'm the talker. And I apologize in advance if you hear my voice more than hers. She's
It's
got
a
a
beautiful
ton of
voice.
great things to say. But we have been together since we were 14 years old.
Well,
So first thing you should know about us is that we've lived probably 3 lives together, I would say.
Yes. Yes.
And we met as high school freshmen in 2001. And I mean, at that point, like, you don't really know what love is. You don't really know much about yourself. But I'd met this girl on AOL Instant Messenger. If you guys remember AOL
Yes.
Instant Messenger.
Aim.
Yeah.
yes.
And
Make the sound.
we had, how do you make, it was tring. I guess something along those lines.
No, the one that.
Oh, the modem? The 56K modem? We would chat all day on that. And like, she actually had a boyfriend at the time that I knew. And this guy called me and he's like, man, I don't like her anymore.
Break up with her for
Will you
me."
break up with her for me? I was like,
Oh, wow.
well, hell yeah.
Y'all, I didn't know that.
Give me your
I did
number.
not know that.
So I called her and I was like, hey, how are you? You know, I talked her up. I was like, by the way, Keith wants to break up with you. And she was like,
Wow.
okay, well, what are you doing later? I was like, nothing. So we started talking. We set up a time to meet in the hallway in between classes. And from the moment I saw her, I kid you not, this is not like isn't just fodder for the romantics out there. I was like, I'm going to be with this girl forever.
And if Jess
my
doesn't post this
gosh.
video, you have to see this huge smile on her face while she tells this.
Yeah. Is that
I mean,
great?
I knew I'd be with this girl. She was perfect. I remember she was wearing this black leather jacket with had like a cranberry colored silk liner, and you had your jeans. Your booty looked great in the jeans. I remember that much.
Your booty looked great.
I had the best booty back then.
Your hair was like gel crimped.
Yeah.
It was like
Or no,
gel
not crimped,
kind of
just
Stop, you
scrunched.
guys.
scrunched. That's it. It was scrunched. We met in the hallway, and I was like, "This is it. This is perfect. This is
Oh my
perfect."
gosh. What school?
Rowlett High School.
Okay.
Rowlett, Texas.
I didn't know that about y'all.
Yeah, went to Rowlett together, and I think it took me about a month to muster the courage to ask her out, and I did, and we have been basically inseparable since.
Wow.
So, like I said, we've lived like 3 lives together. We, so the first one is this naive life where you're just young, kind of dumb. So we got through high school together, graduation and all that stuff, and then it's like, okay, so what's next? What are we doing? I was like, I think I'm going to go to college. She's like, I think I will too. So we ended up getting an apartment together. I was going to Collin County. You were going to Collin County. And I should give some sort of background here because I think it'll confuse the story if it's not. I am a recovered drug addict, alcoholic. And this started in my life when I was about 17. We were together when this was going on.
Yeah.
But it was, at the time, subdued, I guess. It wasn't like really out, and I wasn't really bad yet. So we moved out. My first semester of college, I took pills and I drank the whole time. And I think I had like 3 Fs, and then I forgot to withdraw out of a couple. Like, it was terrible.
Yeah.
Like 0.0 GPA. They put me on like academic probation. She was going to class 2. And did you finish your first semester?
I did not.
You just
I dropped
withdrew?
out.
She withdrew. And I remember like talking to my dad about this. I'm like, I screwed up. You you can't do this. He was paying for me at the time, you know?
Yeah.
He's like, you got to get your grades together. You're done. You're cut off. I was like, okay, I'll get my shit together, Dad. Oh, sorry. I'm supposed to cuss on
No,
here?
you're fine.
I am? Okay. I'm really bad at this. I'm sorry. So language-wise. Anyway,
We just lost several thousand.
Oh, gosh.
listeners.
I'm sorry. So we ended up moving to Denton in like 2007. I'd kind of gotten it together at this point and started going to University of North Texas. I'm a student at this point full-time, and Paige is working like in the insurance industry.
Right.
So we had like this dichotomy of lives where I'm living like this college life, but I'm trying to drag her along with it. And that's kind of like the tale of our relationship for so long. It's like I'm off on this crazy tangent, and she's like my rock, my foundation, holding me like down to like normal life and giving me some semblance of that. My our family lives are much different. Like, only way I could describe us is we are absolute opposites, like complete opposites. She is so like grounded, and she understands where she's headed and how she's going to get there. And like I wake up in the morning and like slap my hands. I'm like, all right, what are we doing? Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
I don't really have a plan.
Yeah.
And she's always been my rock that kept me sort of in the right direction. But
Jay is a lot like that. Jay will wake up and be like, let's open a mini storage.
yeah.
And I'm like,
That's what I'm talking about.
With what time? Like where? And he's like, well, we don't want to get bored. We don't want to
That's
get
what I'm saying,
bored.
Jay. Man, we lived that like naive life through college, and then it's like, okay, let's get married, right? I mean, we always assumed we'd get married. I knew I would marry her when I was 14, so we ended up getting married. I think we were 25. We were 24.
I have no idea.
We were together about 10 years before we got married.
Y'all waited a long time.
We
huh?
did.
years,
It was
we
10
did.
years. Yeah.
Especially back then, it was normal to get married a lot younger.
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, we got married in 2011, I
Yeah.
think. 10 years, and got married in Las Vegas. It was a great throwdown. It was fun. It's a great place to be for a drug addict, alcoholic. Wonderful for me. It was actually nice. I think I was sober at the time, like for that 2 days, I believe. I kept it
No,
together.
I think you were only sober at the ceremony.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, you'd remember
we
better
need to
than me.
count our wins, though. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I'll take it, right?
That's
I'll take
pretty
it.
great.
Man, we got married, and then it's like, okay, let's start having a family. And Sydney was born in 2012. That's about the time that I just fell apart, like absolutely fell apart. And that's like when our lives got real. And that's like when we kind of moved into our second season of life, which was like, it's when I met you. Like, I got to get it together. Like, life is falling apart. Like, I'm not going to be around much longer if we don't do something about this. And I can look at our lives like that first 10 years, and it's like you're sort of together, you're naive. And, you know, love is something funny. Like, I think I always knew I loved her, but you don't really know someone loves you until you get down in the mud with them.
Yeah, and they don't leave.
Right. And it wasn't even like that she didn't leave. It was that she was so supporting, and she was there for me in a way that, like, up to that point in my life, like, only your mother had been, like, your closest people to you. And she was there, and like, she walked me through this and didn't leave my side. And I was like, I love her, like, truly love her.
Yeah.
And our relationship took on just new meaning at that point. And then now we're in this phase where it's we kind of got. I don't want to jinx it. We've got it figured out now. I think so. Anyway,
Take it one day at a time.
I think so. Anyway.
Paige, when he's in the mud and things are like that, how does that look for you?
How's that look for me? It's like I'm hanging on like by a thread. Like, I mean, he always promised me that he would be a good man. And even in the mud, he was like, I promise you one day I'll be a good man.
I would come home like slurring.
Yeah,
saying
he
that.
would be
But I
saying
meant
that.
it.
And I think that I always saw potential, and I always knew that one day he would get his act together for some reason. And I mean, there was one point I was almost done.
Yeah.
That's right before he went to treatment. I was almost done. It was hard.
So that was my question for either one of you. What was the tipping point on the sobriety piece?
Man, like, rock bottom is different for everyone. So, like, they say it's necessary, essentially, that anyone who's using drugs or alcohol in excess has to hit this rock bottom point. And it's a spectrum, right? So, like, some people have, like, rock bottom for them looks like running from the cops and, like, 3 stints in prison and, like,
Losing their family.
and everything else. And so those are what they call, like, in my world, those are, like, low bottom people. Like, they took a lot to get sober. For me, I'm what they call, like, a high bottom. I'm like I had more of an implosion. It was a spiritual implosion, really, at the end of the day. And I wasn't even a spiritual person at the time. I was living my life every day, and I was waking up, and I knew that I wasn't living right. And I couldn't really tell you what right was. I just knew I wasn't it. So I was trying to get sober. This is
Like
a point.
conviction.
Basically, like, this is a point in my life where I was really trying to do the right thing, because I always assumed that there would be some event in my life that like got me sober. I didn't intend on doing this forever. Like
Graduating college, getting married, having kids.
All these things happen, right? Like, so like in your mind, it's like, okay, when I get married, I'll quit drinking like this. And then you get married and you really can't find a reason to stop. And then it's like, okay, well, graduated from school, it was kind of the same thing. The big one for me was kids. I grew up in a home where both my parents have a history with addiction and alcoholism. I didn't want to be around it. I'd seen what that done to us. And then for me, it was like, I'm not going to do that to my kids. And then my daughter was born, and it got so much worse.
Yeah.
Kids are so stressful, right? Like, they keep you up. You don't sleep. Like, life gets crazy. And so at that point, it scared me, because I always assumed that I'd be able to stop when I wanted to. And when I tried to stop and I couldn't, I was like, oh, crap, what now? And it was like every day after that, I woke up, I was like, I need to get this right. I need to get right. I need to get right. And it all came to a head during a work trip, April of 2013. I was out there for a conference in Las Vegas, and I had a plan to taper off of my drug of choice. It was opiate pain medication. I was a pain pill user. Like, you hear about all these like settlements in the news and stuff. Like, I was in the middle of that crap. I took a supply with me that was supposed to taper me down to the point where I could come home and essentially detox and be sober and like live our lives. And like any good addict, I took every bit of that crap the first night.
No.
Oh yeah, that's what I did. You know, like I had like 30 of them, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take like 5 today, 4, 3, and I was going to taper off. I took like 30 the first night. I blacked out, and at the time we were like broke with a capital B. Like, we were no stranger to overdraft fees. Like, we couldn't pay rent sometimes. We'd have to, like, you know, my aunt was our landlord. I'd be like, hey, aunt, like, Tissy, I can't pay this. Give me a few weeks.
I had those ATM alerts.
Man, she had to set up ATM alerts on her phone to know when I was taking money out.
We were trying to buy a house.
We couldn't buy a house. We had no money. We had no scratch whatsoever. And so I was going to Vegas, and we had this long conversation. It was like, do not spend any money when you're out there, because we're broke. Like, we can't afford it. And so I just did the opposite, right? So I went out there, and I got completely annihilated on my supply, and I blacked out. I guess I found an ATM machine and like emptied our account and don't remember it. I, like, blacked out. And the next morning I wake up to my phone ringing, and I looked at my phone. I knew I was in trouble because I had like 14 missed calls already. And it was like, I didn't hear any of them. She was just calling me over and over and over, like, wake your ass up.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone, and there was a different sound in her voice. There's a sound in a woman's voice. Jay, you might have heard this before.
Wouldn't have a clue, but go ahead.
When they are absolutely indifferent. It was as if she was so upset and so done and so hurt that I couldn't hurt her anymore at that point. And she was done with my crap. It was like, whatever you say next, you just need to hear what I'm about to tell you. Whatever you say next means nothing to me. Your apology means nothing. I am fed up. I cannot believe you. I'm just done. I'm done. And I heard it. And I had this moment. This is my very first spiritual experience. I was an atheist / agnostic up to this point in my life, up to this very moment. I heard this voice, and I was the most talented liar. I was with the best of them. I had I heard this voice, like this feeling, this intuition. I was like, just tell the truth, because I'd been hiding it for so long, and I was like really hiding it. And I was good at hiding it, and that's unfortunate that I was. But I was like, yeah, I got to come clean with this. And I just broke down. I was bawling my eyes out, and I told her, I have a serious problem. Like, I've got a really bad problem with pain pills, and I can't stop. And I've tried, and I don't know what to do. And like, I was bawling my eyes out. And what I expected to hear was just like irate anger, you know? But what I heard instead was, well, what are we going to do to fix this? And it was, what are we going to do to fix this? It was like, let's get through this. And then it was like, oh my God, I got hope now. And at that very moment, it was like I had suddenly equated like this inner voice, this intuition from above of being honest, doing the right thing, and the strength that she was giving me. And it was like all of a sudden I had a clear path forward. I jumped in the shower. It's about the time like the withdrawal started, because I was using so much at the time. It was horrible trying to get home. I got home, checked into treatment, and that's like when the rubber met the road. They said 1 in 20 people, 1 in 20 recover and get 1 year of sobriety. And I was in a room with like 20, 25 people. I remember looking around just thinking, really sucks to be the rest of you in this room.
Yes. Sucks for you
Yeah,
guys.
don't take it personally, but I'm going to figure this out. And like, if they would have told me to cut my toes off, if they would have told me to walk on my hands for the next 3, I would have done it. I didn't care. I was like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to do this. There's so much for us. I knew that this is not how our story was going to end.
I want to tell you, Matt, one of my favorite quotes from Brene Brown is she says, I'm going to butcher it, but the gist of it is that when you share the darkest secrets of your heart with somebody and they respond with compassion, they become a part of your healing.
Without a doubt.
And
I love that.
When you do the same and they respond with judgment, they become a part of your shame story.
Mm-hmm.
And so huge, gigantic moments, like you attribute so much to that phone call because there is so much power in this.
Big time.
There's so much power in you finally telling her your secret and her responding in love. Giddy up. Now we're ready.
Absolutely. And I think anyone listening, and it's generally the case, it's like, what were you doing all this time, Paige? And like, I think you can't tell my story without telling her story up to this point in our lives. Like, I was hiding it, and I was good at it, and I could lie with the best of them, and I could make this seem like no problem, right? Like, I was good at covering it up. I would take a bunch of downers, and to counteract that, I'd take uppers so I didn't ever fall asleep, and then I would like drink and disappear and like smoke pot in the garage, and like I had a system, right?
Yeah,
I was like Dexter. Like, she had no clue what I was doing. Like, I had a system, but it's important that I think that.
I mean, I had a clue, but I was still in denial. It was my norm. That's all it was. It was my norm. We had been together for so long that you had made it so normal in our relationship that this is how you were. And the lies were normal, and the using was normal, and the anger was normal. You know, it was just, I was in denial for a long time.
And I'm a 10-time world champ. Gaslighting. I'm really good at that.
Yeah.
I was really good at that. So it was, anytime she'd confront me, it was like, there is no problem. And to the extent that there is a problem, you're the problem. And I was really good at spinning this stuff. And she'd get to a point where she's like exhausted. She's like, I'm just not going to fight with you anymore. This isn't worth it. So it was a lot of that.
Yeah. And then there were good days. Like, there were still good days. And a lot of people don't realize that when you're in a relationship, you know, like this. They think that it's constantly bad and not abusive, but you know how it was just toxic.
Absolutely.
But there were such good days too. We
There
had
were.
fun. I still loved you so much, and we still had some intimate conversations, and we still had a good relationship on the surface, but still.
Yeah, I thank God that you had the wherewithal to see, like, even in my darkest times, you could see my real self poke out every so often and be like,
Yep.
there he is.
Yep.
He's still in
That's
there.
the one I'm looking for.
Yep.
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 And then I would poke out just enough and then disappear again. And then, you know, we played that game for so long, so long.
Right.
You mentioned already a couple of times about being authentic and authenticity and what it means to you and how it's affected your life. And I guess one question that I have, after all that's said and done, you go through all that, who are you living your life for? How would you describe that when you get past that point?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That is a good question. So authenticity was a very difficult road for me. My first therapy session after, like, I was in treatment, I was diagnosed a chameleon, which meant essentially that I could be who you needed me to be or what you needed me to be.
What else would they call that? Because I've never heard that term. So, like, what do they equate it with?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's like a split personality or if that's
personality?
like essentially a personality disorder.
Chameleon.
Chameleon. So I was so inauthentic. If the situation called for it, I would be whoever anyone needed me to be. People pleasing, I think, is probably really the term I'm looking for. Because it's not as insidious as like multiple personality disorder, which is like
Have you seen that
rare.
cute meme where they're like, "You go ahead and tell me how we're gonna act," because they match energies. So it's like you just go ahead and tell me how we're gonna act.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. It's basically it. It sums it up pretty well.
That's nice, Matt. That's just you being nice.
Not really. So for me, it got to the point where if you do that enough times for long enough, you lose this real sense of who you are. And that's what I had done over the years. It was like I lost this sense of who I was. And that's the scary part about when I did sober up was, who the hell am I? Thank God I had her around because if not for her, because she remembered me when I was before all this. She remembered me at the 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, like in my formative years, adolescent years. And she was like my lighthouse. And so I could always turn around in the dark ocean
lighthouse.
and I could see this light, and she would remind
Dear
me where I'm
Barbara.
at and like give me some direction of some
Gosh
kind.
darn it.
That
He's getting so much play tonight. It's not even funny.
I'm bad at this, I'm
called
telling you.
her my lighthouse. Do y'all want us to step out for just a second?
But it's the only way I knew who I was and how to find myself.
goodness.
That she would remind me and say, hey, this was you. This is you. And, she wasn't being like misleading about it. She was reminding me who I was.
Wow.
And then I also had this new sense of the spirit, this new guiding light for what was right, what was wrong. Like the first time I'd really had, like, I guess, morals in a sense, moral
Like a
direction.
like a surrender.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
So when I surrendered and I gave up, it truly was me throwing my hands up to the air and be like, God, I don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah.
Like I'm done running my life on self-will. I've tried it and I failed miserably. You've got to give me some direction here. And I found quickly that God does not make too hard of terms with those that seek him, regardless of how you seek and when you seek. I found answers as soon as I came asking.
Wow.
And at that point, it was pretty clear to me that there was one path and one path only, and it was going to be, you've got to be authentic from here on out. You've spent the last decade of your life lying and deceiving and being inauthentic and being this chameleon, and it's time just to be you. And I made you to be you, and you're perfect the way you are. There's this beautiful story there. And I knew that Paige fell in love with me for who I was, because when she met me, like, if you see us now, you wouldn't know what I looked like then. She fell in love with a chubby 14-year-old boy with speckled facial hair and frosted tips.
Yep.
It was the NSYNC.
Pretty great.
The
Pretty great.
the NSYNC hairstyle.
You were
Like,
so cute.
They have pictures from there, and they will be going online.
please put them
Yeah.
up. But that's the boy she fell in love with, and then I knew that she loved the authentic me, so I didn't have to hide anymore. But it was incredibly scary, like being authentic. She never had a problem being authentic. Like, as I'm talking about this, it's like this newfound, profound, like, state of life.
Sure.
She's like,
Welcome.
"Man, it's like I've been doing
Welcome.
this forever. Like, this is so
Welcome.
easy."
So that kind of brings me to another question I had for you is that day when he calls and I mean all that guard drops and the transparency comes forward. What did that look like for you, and where did that push you direction wise?
Well, at first I was in shock, honestly. I mean, I was kind of ashamed because that's one of those things. I thought that everything was okay, but I knew things were wrong, but not. I didn't know what to do. That's scary.
How did it get this far?
Right. How did this
Yeah.
happen? I have a 9-month-old and he's telling me he needs to go to rehab. Like, I was just shocked. And then when he went into treatment, I was like, okay, this is great. Things are going to be great. He's going to come out and everything's going to be perfect. And our marriage is going to go back to how it was before. And what I found was that it was almost harder
Really?
after the fact,
Yeah.
because I had to look at myself too.
Sure.
I found out that I had issues as well. Like, I was a codependent and I started having really bad anxiety. My panic attacks started coming up a lot more because I was so used to fixing him.
Sure.
I was trying to fix
Sure.
him for
You
years
have
and
time
years
to
and
fix
years.
yourself.
It's a good
Yeah.
distraction
Yes,
from
it was
growth.
exactly.
Yeah.
It was a huge distraction because I'm like, this is his problem, not
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah, you don't
I
have to deal with
anything.
that.
Yeah. But that's when I lost myself, was within him. So when he did get help, I got help 5 years later.
Yeah, such an unintended consequence. Like, as an addict, they call it a family disease because we wreak havoc over everyone that touches the addict. And I didn't realize at any point that I would have been harming her.
Yeah.
It was insane to find that out. I was like, no, she's not broken. She's fine.
She's
it's just me.
good.
It's just
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then as she's going through panic disorder and anxiety, and it's just
Depression.
like, what have I done?
It does make sense though, with you being the right half of the body and her being the left half. I mean, it does make more sense that y'all are even more one than people that are one. Y'all are in 9th grade. You've been one person for a long time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It makes a lot of sense that the healing would come in phases to both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does now. Back then, we had no clue.
Didn't feel very fair, I'm sure.
No.
Yeah.
It's like, no, save her from this. This doesn't have
Right.
anything to do with her. And then she
Yeah.
starts suffering too. And I'm like, oh my God, what have I done?
And how did that affect your sobriety, realizing that?
Man, when I got sober,
That's a good question, too.
I knew no matter what had happened that it was possible to stay sober. I had seen people who had lost children in sobriety and were able to stay that way. And so I figured, man, if there's, no matter what happens, I know I can stay sober. The tough part about working through what we've worked through, codependency issues and addiction, is that you're trying to stay married, and a marriage is really about communication, right? It's like relationships in general. They're based on communication, this foundation of love and understanding. And at some point, you have to start walking your own path. Like the road forks, and I had to walk down this path where I'm spending every single night at AA meetings. I'm going to treatment centers and speaking. I'm an intensive outpatient. And then she's walking her path on her own where she's learning about herself and she's spending time with therapists and she's learning about codependency and she's learning about, cognitive distortions and all these things that she lives with. And at some point we have to like reconvene in the evenings and talk about this. But it was very much like this personal journey that each of us had to walk at the same pace, roughly. I got a little bit of a head start because, like I said, we didn't know that this had even affected her for several years after I had gotten clean and sober. And there were times where it got really tough, where like I'm at this point, like 3 to 4 years in, I'm like, I'm pretty happy and I'm understanding who I am as a man. I'm understanding who I am as a parent and who I am as a husband. And in, running a business, like I'm starting to kind of feel like an adult for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
And then we would have issues and it's like, I have answers, but I can't really tell her what the answer is because she has to learn herself.
Sure.
As she's walking her path. And there were some times where we did get pretty far apart. And I think that our relationship, and I think any relationship really, it goes through this series of like, you get far apart and you come back together. You get far apart and you come back together. The only time you ever fail, it's okay if you come apart a little bit. You just got to come back together.
Yeah.
You got to have these
That
conversations.
had been a little bit scary though for you to think once I get sober, everything's going to be fine, and you too, and then look up and
It's
realize
another
that that's not
curveball.
the case.
Yeah.
Well, one of my main questions that's been swirling in my head for you all week, Matt, would be: Did your addiction try after sobriety to go to something else?
Yeah, I think that, so addiction, I forget the actual term that they use, but people can be like cross addicted, and then the addiction can sort of, it's like a demon that follows you around.
Sure.
And it's sort of like you can move houses, but it's coming with you.
Yeah.
You can stop one substance and it's going to stay in you. So like, I do believe there's a component in it that's in me. I was born with this, environment sets it off, but absolutely. So for me, addiction was always like this nervous energy that I had inside of me, and I quieted it down with these substances. When I got sober, what I found was that those feelings were always going to be in me. I couldn't do anything about those, but I could choose a different outlet for them. And so fitness was like the first thing that I chose.
Okay.
And when I found the gym, we found Kodiak. I'd been sober about a year.
Yeah.
I spent the first year of sobriety just getting my mind right, getting my spirit right. I mean, I was hitting, a meeting a day for a year at least a meeting a day. I was like, 365 for 365.
Right.
And I felt really confident in my newfound spirit and like what I was supposed to be doing. But then unknowingly, I'd put on like 80 pounds.
I was going to say, you were eating a lot of candy during that time.
What year was that?
That was 2000,
13
to 14. So April of 13 to roughly March of 14.
So do I think that God sent you to save me, but God sent us to save you? Is that really what you're telling me right now?
Basically. So
I don't even remember. I thought that you were like 5-6 years out.
no, I was like a year sober at the time.
But I also thought that Sid was 5 or 6. So I'm
She was
way
new,
wrong.
baby. Yeah, I spent the first year eating chocolate.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. I don't remember him being chubby.
I was.
I don't think you were chubby
So,
when we met.
I am 6 feet tall, and today I'm about 165, 170 pounds, like 8% body fat.
Yeah.
Back then, I was 6 feet tall, about 250 pounds, and probably 30%.
It was right before
Did I
Third-
meet in Lighthouse?
5%.
No.
'Cause I don't
Because he
remember
lost
that.
weight really fast.
Okay.
He
Yeah.
did.
With CrossFit?
With
Yeah.
CrossFit.
So I didn't know anything about how to get fit. I didn't know anything, but I knew that I had at this point already transferred my addiction from one thing to another, and it was
Sure.
food. It became food, became candy, chocolate. And so I'm like, okay, this
Did
little
you
monster.
know that was happening?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, she knew.
Yeah.
But we were okay with it, and I think that we
Right.
had talked to even therapists about it.
Yep.
It's like they're like, it's better than drinking.
Okay.
It's better than taking
And your
drugs.
sponsor told you.
Yeah, and he told me, he's like, this is going to happen, but I want you to know that it's okay early on. We will address this, but early on, I just need you to stay sober. So he's
Right.
like, whatever that, if that means on
Get
the
your
way
mind
home,
right.
Battle and roll on.
right? If that means on the way home you get a
love
craving and you
it.
grab a Snickers instead of a pill, that's fine with me. If you grab, Twix bar instead
Yeah.
of a drink, that's fine with me. But we will have to address this too. I'm like,
What was your
10-4.
chocolate drug of choice?
You name it. It doesn't
What?
matter. Everything.
He loves
Everything?
0 bars.
Oh, 0 bars are like, yeah, my
I
jam.
oh, wait, what's zero?
It's
Zero
the
is
white
white
chocolate.
fudge,
Oh,
nougat,
no.
almond.
Mine's a score. I thought
Scores
it was
are
the
great,
same.
too.
I love a score.
Oh, toffee. Yeah, you name it. I'm
yeah,
eating
a
it.
zero. I don't know what a
I
zero
literally
is.
don't. I even eat black licorice. I don't hate any candy.
Seriously,
I eat everything,
his
y'all.
drawer on the table next to his bed was full of candy wrappers.
It looked like Halloween every
For
week.
real?
Yes.
Kid you not. Like I was
Yeah.
eating so much candy, but I wasn't drinking, and so I was like, okay, we're all right.
Yeah.
We're getting through it.
Sure.
So then it was like, all right, now I've put on like 80 pounds. I've got to do
Wow.
something. I got to do something. And so I asked a buddy who was really fit. I'm like, what do you do to stay in shape?
When you say 80, do you mean 80?
I mean, 80 pounds.
You mean 80.
I'll send you a picture.
Oh yeah.
80's a lot, Matt.
It was a whole lot. I gained it.
That's
okay.
impressive.
Funny story. In the spirit of authenticity, which I'm absolutely, I used to wear Spanx for men.
For real?
Kid you not. Because my boobs just jiggle so bad, y'all.
Stop. I do not remember this at all.
Like I remember buying a Dallas Cowboys jersey at the time. I'm a big Cowboys. I'm a tortured Cowboys fan, and they didn't fit right, and like my nipples were real puffy and gross looking, and I'm like, man, I gotta do something about this. So I got online. I'm like, what to do for man boobs? And
No.
Spanx were out
That
there.
was in your search history.
I wore Spanx for like that, probably eight months.
That's
to a
when you
year.
knew. That's when you were like,
I was like, man, I got to do something about this. I can't keep wearing Spanx, y'all.
Yeah.
Like, I got to do something. So I asked a buddy who was fit. I'm like, what do you do to stay fit? And he's like, this thing called CrossFit. I'm
Who
like,
is that?
This buddy of mine named Kevin Kiefer. He's
Do I know
he's a
him?
VP for one of my big customers, and he's also a
Okay.
close friend of mine. You don't know him, but
What area is he?
he's in Prosper, and
Okay.
he knew about Kodiak because he in the mornings he would drive by it.
Okay.
And he just saw people out there running, and it was always active.
Okay.
And he was like, it's got to be a good gym because it's always frequented by people. So
Okay.
it's got to be
Yeah,
good.
we had so many people.
He's like, man, just go up there and ask him what's up. So I went up there. I'm like, I don't even know what to do. And they were like, all right, sign up here. We'll see you. We have a class at 5 a.m. I'm like, that'll work for me. I showed up and just dove right in. I'm like, what do I do day one? Day one's always like, you puke. It's tough. You haven't worked out like that since like football and like middle school. It's like rough. Like I remember your first one, your
Yeah.
first workouts.
yeah.
It's
And
tough.
they're like, and now we want you to run the place.
Basically, yeah. It didn't take long. So, like, I spent that first year, and this is about the time that I'd met you, and I met Ryan, I met
Yeah.
Jeff, and I met Lisa, and I met, Rick, and I met his wife, Dawn.
Yes.
And all these people
Michelle
that.
and Jason.
Yeah, all these.
Luis and Claudia.
Yes, like Katie, even Jacob
Yvette,
and Eric.
Susan.
Yeah, all these people who had come into my life.
Katie
and
Juice.
I'm so like broken at this point, and I didn't really know what it was like to have friends as an adult. Like I felt like I'm an adult for the first time at like 27, 28 years old. Paige and I had never really had relationships other than the people that we grew up with.
right.
Sure.
Because we had never gotten out because I was a recluse addict and she was very much in her shell and like she had a lot of anxiety, so she didn't travel well,
Yeah.
And this is the first time I had like adult friends. And so like slowly walking into those relationships, and fitness was a great way to break the ice because
Yeah.
you got to be authentic when you're sweating, dying, like, and you're all together and like the
Yeah.
shared trauma that
Did
takes
you
place.
like us, Paige?
I was about to
Were you
chime
gonna
in
say-
Yes.
here.
Yeah.
Because
What are your thoughts?
I want to preface with, if he went and found a crew, I wouldn't like them.
It wasn't like the crew. It was the fact that he was gone all the time because I had just had MJ and
Yeah.
I was pregnant with him.
Yeah.
I remember when I went to the hospital to be induced with MJ, Matt had to leave to go work out while I was in the hospital.
Yeah. Okay, she can say this now, but I did run it by her, and I knew it was wrong. But I was like,
Okay.
"Do you mind if I like get up there and get
Right.
a
You
quick
did.
workout
and
in for an
I
hour?"
don't think it's wrong. I really don't. I know a lot of people would. And back then I was
But
like,
needs to be
okay,
said.
I needed him to do what he needed to do to stay sober.
Sure.
But it was still really hard for me because I was, I had 2 kids at this point,
You
and I'm like,
couldn't
I
do
couldn't
that.
do anything. There was no babysitting service
No.
up there. I couldn't take him up there. So I'm like, okay, he's living his own life. What about me? I felt like he had this whole secret group of people, and we had always done stuff together.
Sure.
Always. All of his friends were my friends. So when he started doing this, I'm like, well, I guess I'm on the back burner again. So that did cause problems
Yeah.
for a few years because I
Sorry,
always
Paige.
felt like I was on the back burner.
Right.
It's not, no,
Well, if
I'm
it
so
ev-
grateful it happened.
If it ever was Lisa and Ryan and me, we are sorry. Because we love you, but we were obsessed with him.
Oh, I
we
know, because
just-
he's so lovable. No,
Yeah.
and I was never mad at anybody else.
Okay.
It was him.
good.
Like,
Yeah, it sucks. Like, I think about our relationship in general. She's always had to share me with something. I think just until recently, you finally had me to yourself. Like, finally.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, but it took a long time to get there.
Don't become a farmer. Okay, what's your next question? I don't have to share him with no one.
No.
Just something.
Just
Yeah.
sometimes, yeah.
Something that's very large.
Well, my next question is based on what we're talking about. Jess always says that when something goes wrong in our life or something happens, it's stretching us to get to a point. And you talked a lot about discomfort, and obviously up to this point in y'all's marriage, y'all been through a lot of discomfort. And I guess you've talked about what it's done for you within that. But how do you view that now, the discomfort in your life and where it stretches you and what it's led you to the situation that you're in now versus earlier in your marriage?
You want me to take this one again?
Yeah.
I'm talking way too
he-
much.
No,
Yeah, but-
I really like listening to you.
But however, that's a really fun question to answer.
It
so I
is.
would see you wanting it.
For me, discomfort is like I crave it. I really do at this point in our lives. It doesn't feel like that in the beginning. It truly doesn't. You're like, why, God, is this happening?
Have you read Tools by Phil Stutzman?
I have not.
Or Phil Stutz? Stutz or Stutzman. He just did that documentary with Jonah Hill called Stutz. It's on Netflix.
I have seen the
Did you watch
documentary.
that?
I have.
Well, he has a book called Tools, and it's him and a co-writer. But the first tool is to crave pain.
Man, I believe that wholeheartedly now.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like that in the beginning. You're like, why am I going through pain? Or sometimes you're just naive and you're like, I'm just in pain without realizing that there's a lesson at the other side of it. Now, like when I'm going through pain, like I get fired up. I'm like, all right,
We embrace it.
We're about to learn
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And I can't wait.
I don't mean to interrupt you,
No, you're
but
good.
I did want to talk about this because we had something pretty gigantic happen in our life last week. And we're flying to Tampa in the morning, but we packed, shuttled to the airport, checked in at the kiosk last Monday. And because he's a farmer and his head is in 17 other places. And so because he's been missing, Saturday night he got home and I let my guard down. Like, we don't work on Sundays. We're the only farm that doesn't work on Sundays. And I'm going to have him all day Sunday. Then we're going to go to Tampa and spend 3 days together. I've got I'm very codependent. We're working through that also. I have huge codependency because he saved me in my deepest. He was my savior, so I rely on him. And so we're standing at the kiosk and he turns to me and he has this look in his eyes and he says, I messed up. And I was like, what? And he's like, I really messed up. And he said, we don't fly out till next week. And I just could feel that jolt in my system. Like, I know me, this is going to be a trigger. This is not good. What do I do? Like, don't scare him off, but figure out how to get what you need without scaring him. And so I go, hey fella, what if we go stay in Dallas for a couple of days? And he's like, babe, I gotta get back. We race back to this house. He pretty much kicks me out the car and disappears for 3 days. And I'm not good. I'm not pouting. I'm in full anxiety attack. Like, my hands are shaking. I'm not eating. 3 nights of not sleeping. I'm laying on this couch with a basketball in my neck. And I've been triggered. When I expect something that does not occur, it's a trigger for me. And then I have a huge fear of abandonment. He's gone. I mean, he's gone. And there was no recourse. There was no like, we were going to spend 3 days together, get in the truck, we're together. I don't care if we're at the farm, we're going to be together, we're going to get lunch, we're going to get dinner. There wasn't that, because my joy that I would have felt going to stay in Dallas for a couple nights was the joy he was feeling racing back to the field. His work is his love. It's his passion. And so me having a few days with him, he can have it with his mistress, the farm, and be just as happy. So anyways, to say it did not go well, it did not go well. And so when he turned to me at the kiosk, that was Monday morning. We didn't speak till Wednesday night. And I know that's not great, you guys, but I am just not, as you would say, a whole individual just yet. And so I stood in the field, and I'm going to wind back around to craving pain. Not for Jay, not for me, and enforcing pain on my person. But as we stood in the field on the phone, and I just let him know all of the feelings that I was having in my life. And the meaner I get, the closer we are to resolution. And I know that is so effed up, but I finally went for this one sentence that you wouldn't say. You would not say it to the person you hate the most on this earth. And I was like, giddy up, mother effer. And I went for it. And we both got so tickled. You know, it was just so bad and so
What was the line? I need to know.
Oh, you don't want to know?
Well, I'll tell you after.
Okay, fair enough.
And it can't be on here. And it's that bad. It was
greatness.
it was so sinister, and it was so heinous. And as I said it, I got tickled, and he starts laughing. And it was like physically, it was physical and visceral. Everything drained from the space, and the cloud went away. The storm cloud, the sinister pushed the storm cloud away. And when I was hearing about the craving the pain, just go for the pain. It's coming anyways. So why don't you just look it dead in the face? And we were good. Yeah. And we were able to finally have a normal conversation about what needed to have happened. But neither of us could grab that 60 seconds of bravery to say, this is not good. This is what I need from you. I'm an Enneagram 2, so I expect him to know it. I'll be damned if I'm going to tell you what I need. We've been together for 7 years. You should know, you know. So sorry to interrupt you, Matt, but
No, I love that story.
I was wanting to share that effed up story with our listeners, and that pretty much led into it.
It's relatable. Think about when we have our arguments and our fights, and we just like...
Do y'all do that?
We start just dying laughing at some point.
It's funny because we'll have like a knockdown drag out, like go to different rooms, and it's like, let's take our time. And then I'll spot her in the kitchen doing something, and I'll look at her and just kind of give her a look, and we just freaking start laughing.
And we just start smiling. Like, it's the weirdest thing.
And then at that point, it's like, I'm
it's like
so sorry for my part in that. Like,
Right.
That was ugly. I had no right to say that to you. I'm sorry. And then she, just breaks down
So we
that barrier.
say that look is the drop the rope. That's you dropping the rope.
Absolutely.
There's no more tug of war.
We don't play tug of war too much.
No?
We used to. We don't play tug of war anymore. I mean, we're like...
Us either.
I mean, we're...
Us either.
Jay's dying right now, y'all.
What the hell is she?
What is she talking about, y'all?
Go,
we made
Maddie.
sweatshirts because
Sorry,
of it.
Daddy. We're so good at tug of war. We made tug of war t-shirts.
Yeah. It's field day every day out here.
They're like, oh, do you try to spread drop the rope because you're so good at it? And we're like, no, because we're trying to figure it out.
Exactly. I get that.
Just raising awareness.
We are going to try it soon.
You should.
We've heard that it works.
We do
Totally.
get it right occasionally.
We've
man,
heard
it
that
works.
it works.
Sometimes it's a 3-day event.
Practice.
I told somebody said we do need to do an alternate shirt that says Tug War Champion or something.
That'd be great.
Oh, that would
I
be
guess we
hilarious.
could do that. I need to talk to Luis and do that next.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
That needs to be front and back. Drop the
I
rope, tug of war champion.
But I want want you to go back to Maddie because I interrupted him on the pain and
discomfort. I forgot the actual question, but I can give you my thoughts, my feeling on like pain, discomfort, and all this stuff. Like when you're going through it early on, before you've matured to the point where you understand there's lessons and all this stuff, you feel like the world's not fair. The best way I ever heard it put, I was about a year sober, and I was in a meeting, and I was just like complaining and moaning and groaning about my job and about everything that was going on, like customers, I hate them all, blah, blah, blah. And this guy stopped me. He's like, time out, brother. He's like, the bird didn't shit on your window. The bird just shit.
oh, I love it.
And I was like, that was so stupid and profound. I love it.
Yeah.
And it was like, bad things don't happen to me. Bad things just happen. And my perception of that event determines whether I learn something or I think the world's just not fair.
Right.
And it clicked.
A
And I was like,
victim mentality.
right. I was like, at this point, I'm like, there's a lesson in every single thing I've ever been through. So then I kind of go through the Rolodex of everything. And I'm like, man, this could be helpful for other people.
Sure.
Like this is strength. This
Right.
isn't just like bad stuff happening. There's strength. There's lessons in every bit of this. So now when bad things happen, like we just got back from a vacation. We went to London. Decided to go to London for spring break.
They do get a spring break.
Yeah, we took a spring
They
break.
got a spring break. We
I'm sorry
did
to rub
not.
it in.
We did not get a spring
It's I didn't mean to open a wound here, but we did. So we went to London,
We
and
did not go to London.
we faced a ton of adversity, especially on
Did
the way
y'all?
home. Oh yeah, so on the way home, flight was delayed. We were stuck in Atlanta for over 24 hours in the terminal. Like we couldn't shower, we couldn't sleep in a hotel. We just stayed in the floor, and the entire time, like you would never know it if you were with us. We were laughing, we were cutting up, we were making light of it. We were laughing about how we were eating out of vending machines and stuff. It's like, this is fun. Like, let's just make this
Right.
fun. Because we got two options here. We can roll with this. We can just accept this, and we got to have a great story, and we're going to learn something. Not to mention our kids are with us. And it's like, what example do we want to set for them as we're facing adversity? Do we want them to see that, like, you get mad, you fight the world, and you fight the way that things are supposed to be? Because I truly believe that nothing happens in God's world by mistake. And so if that's the case, if nothing happens in God's world by mistake, then every time I get upset, it's like sticking my middle finger at this guy. It's like, I don't like your universe. I don't like your world. And I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna be mad for 2 or 3 days. I'm gonna make myself suffer and everyone around me suffer. I didn't know that this is something that came over time, but now I think about that. I'm like, before I get mad, I think the bird just shit. He just shit. Didn't shit on me, just shit.
Why is it important to you? Has it always been important to you, or why is it important to you to honor God and honor this place that He's made?
For me, that didn't occur until I got sober. I didn't. Like, I mean, I was raised around the church, obviously. I mean, like, so we Christian society. I'm from Texas, born and raised.
Yeah.
Small town. My parents, they took me to church. They taught me about God, but I never really felt connected to it. When I'd gotten sober, I had sort of made like a deal, and it was like, if you show me the way, I will always honor. I will always live by you. I will do everything. Because they told me that was the way. They said that you've basically you've got this disease, but there's a spiritual remedy for it. You can't work yourself out of this hole alone. It's got to come through something bigger than yourself. And I decided to walk that path. And when I did, and I saw that life was getting better, I became a believer in it. I'm like, wow, this stuff isn't just BS. Like, this is real. And at that point, I became, literally obsessed with, living God's will. It's like, my prayers are super simple. Like, my prayers are like, give me knowledge of your will and the power to carry it out. The end. Like, I don't
That's
ask God
awesome.
for anything anymore because I've used up all my favors. I should have been dead. I should have been pulled over and sent to jail. I should have lost my wife. I should have lost my kids. There's no reason I should be alive today, considering what I was doing to myself. So when I got sober, I was like, I will never ask you for another thing again except for knowledge of your will for me and then the power to carry it out. And I've never prayed for anything other than that. And I truly honor that. And so when I'm asking, give me a knowledge of your will, what I'm really asking for is acceptance of the world as it stands right now. I'm not asking for you to change anything. I don't care what the score of the game is. Nothing. All I ask you for is acceptance of your world and its beauty and its splendor, sometimes in its ugliness. I just ask for acceptance. That's it. And that has been the key for me. And not just staying sober, but really understanding the lessons that every bit of adversity we go through, and what's behind every one of them. We've been through crap, like so much crap. And when we first went through, like Paige mentioned it, like there was so much shame early on. Like she was like, my husband's one of the quote unquote those people now. Like he's one of them like drug people. He's like a freaking boozer. Like we can't go do things. We have to like tell people like you can't drink around him. Like that's how you feel when this first happens. It's like we're outcasts. We're like lepers on this island. How do we handle this? You know? It was so scary in the beginning. And then like almost immediately we saw it. It's like, this could be a source of strength.
Yep.
We could walk others through this, which is what Tufo, Till the Wheels Fall Off, really became. It was like, man, I think it's kind of selfish keeping all this to ourselves, everything that we've learned. Like we've been down every road for like mental health treatment, addiction treatment, spiritual seeking. We've been through, some of the stuff isn't so much like, life related as it is just like business experiences and things like that. Like if you roll through these things sober with no inhibitions, like nothing to numb you out, you have to learn. You have to. Like you don't have a choice but to feel every freaking bit of it.
Right.
And learn from it. And
Right.
so that's been our mission at this point. It's like, let's show others
Yeah.
how we got through it in one piece, and maybe we could help somebody.
So when he mentions Till the Wheels Fall Off, that's he and Paige's podcast that they started how many
We
months
started
ago?
in September.
In
Yeah, we're
September.
6 months now.
6 months in,
It
but
feels
20
a
years in the
lot.
making.
I was going to say, it feels so much further in. And when we were praying about who we wanted to come on the show next, we got so enchanted by the synchronicity of moving on until the wheels fall off. And so we already love each other. We're just a very kindred bunch. We enjoy being together. But when we do see that our ministries and our missions and our purposes and our whys kind of hold hands, it's pretty neat. But if you guys
Without a
want to,
doubt.
if you guys want to hear Paige and Matt, their podcast is called Till the Wheels Fall Off, and you'll see the acronym TWFO.
It's shorter. It's easier to say. Tufo.
Tufo. I love it.
TWFO.
I had a question for Paige along this same line. Your background growing up versus a life that you were living, and then all this stretching, all this discomfort, how it is applied being a parent and what you see, what your kids are going through.
Well, like as a parent, like with the discomfort, I try to teach my kids to get uncomfortable all the time and seek out mistakes and be okay with making mistakes, because you're not growing and you're not learning and you're going to be stalled if you're not going to get out there and try to get uncomfortable. Like we encourage it
Absolutely.
all the
You
time.
don't fix it for
we
them.
don't. I do not fix
We've
it for my
talked about
kids.
this a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't fix
She
it.
and I.
We did an episode called Stop Saving Your Kids.
Yeah.
We did.
And it was about like
Yeah.
kids learn through, and people learn through natural consequences.
Right.
It's generally how we learn. Like you learn not to touch a stove because it's hot. And you'll learn, someone could tell you it's hot, but you really ain't gonna believe until you burn yourself. You're like, I ain't touching that damn thing
Yeah.
again. Kids learn the same way. And every time we intervene, we're actually robbing them of a lesson they could learn.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
And we look at life like it's like, let them feel it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's kind of how we approach our podcast, is we don't really try to teach anyone anything because we don't feel in that position to be able to do it, but we do like to pass along what's happened in our lives.
Your experience is
Experience.
everything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so I don't ever want to get to the point where we're feeling like we have the answer and we're
Right.
going to tell it to you, because they're not going to listen to it anyways.
Yeah.
And so it just needs to be something about our experience that you can receive and kind of, like you said, put in the back of your mind for when that situation comes up. You at least have a few more tools in your pocket. you know?
Absolutely.
And I
Right.
think it just comes in such stages as,
Yeah.
as much as we've evolved, as we've done this podcast in our marriage and within our family, it's all changed. And I can see that from y'all's story, the same thing. And it'll be interesting to see when y'all are
Yeah.
7 years down the
Yeah.
line, just like what you think about what you're saying and how much it's changed and how much it's evolved. It's really a
and
unique deal.
I do
Yeah.
want to go back and say that when I'm talking about how we share our experiences and trying to teach, because it does evolve. Something that helps me so much is realizing that no one on this earth is better than anyone else.
No,
Yeah.
you're not.
No
You're right.
one. And that helps me to center myself exactly where I need to be to show God's love to other people, because you are raised knowing how to rank who's better, and because they have money or they have this platform, or
Yeah.
they're prettier, and so once I got, and it's been recent where I've just been like, no, we have got to level this playing field. And so going through what you went through, Matt, and having that shame and thinking, I bet you there was a season in there where you thought that there were a lot of people better than you.
Oh, without a doubt.
And realizing that that's not true at all. Whether they went through it and are not telling about it, or gonna go through it and haven't known yet. I mean, everyone is gonna have a story. And if they don't have a story, they haven't gotten in the arena.
Right.
And we want to be people that get in the arena. And we want to be people, like I tell you, that we didn't speak for 3 days and I threw an adult tantrum. When we spoke, I told him, I said, babe, you would never bring kids to that kiosk and say, we're going to Disneyland, and then be like, oh, we're a week early, and then take them home and you go to work. You would never do that. And Jay was like, but you're not a child. And I'm like, oh, but I am. Like when it comes to this, evidently, with the demons that I deal with, my mental health, in this very instance, I am just as much a child as any child is. And so knowing where those parts are and knowing where you have to take care of each other. Like, this part of her is not full yet. It's not whole yet. And so in our marriage, this is where I'm going to uphold her. And, people will hear this story and say, I'm a spoiled wife, or, like that. But it really just doesn't matter. It only matters to your inner circle and what's going on in your inner circle, and the transparency of, I was a really weak, weak, W-E-A-K, like that was not my best showing, but we learned so much through it.
Absolutely.
And one of our main principles that we took away from it is, when I am drowning, it pushes him away. The symptoms of me drowning, I think they're sending out a sign like, please help me, I'm drowning. The signals he's receiving are, get the F out of here.
Yeah, stay away from me.
Right this minute. I do not want to see you. Get out of here. Get in your truck and drive away. And I'm screaming silently, help, please help.
It's like walking in the lion's cage, man.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Right. And, I was, this is so silly, but I was watching Sex in the City today, and the girls got in a fight, and Charlotte was like, I'm leaving. Do not follow me. And she followed her. She followed her all the way to her house just to make sure she was okay. And she was so happy. She had told her to go away, but she didn't mean that. And that's what, with him, I'm going to say everything I want to say, but I need help. I can't really do parts of this life on my own just yet.
Yeah.
Maybe next time.
Yeah.
Right.
Every time you go through something like that, you learn just a little bit more, like 1% more.
We've never
1%
shown
more.
up to a kiosk and checked in a week before. We never. I
Now,
mean,
now you have.
that's never happened. Didn't know how to process it. And I was talking to my brother, and he was like, what you needed from Jay and what you couldn't say to him. Because I told you earlier, I'm an Enneagram 2, and one of our main personality traits is we can't express what we need in that darkness. We need you to have known it and read. I mean, I'm like, read the room, fella. Like, of course you know what I need. You're my person. I've told you millions of times. Go back in your Rolodex and find it. Instead of just opening my mouth. And my brother was like, you just needed 60 seconds of bravery. And I couldn't find it. I'll be damned if I have to say it. Yeah.
All that leads me to a question for Paige.
I told, when we started the podcast, Matt said that Paige is not going to talk very much. And I was like, uh-oh. I was like, you turned Jay on to Paige.
Please ask her all the questions.
And then I'm over here looking at Matt like, you got to save me
She
here.
has so much wisdom, but she's
Well,
just like,
it's a question for both of you. I'm just starting with Paige.
Okay.
And with everything you've gone through, I guess what message
Y'all can hear our kids.
would you give to a struggling person, a couple, whether it be about sobriety or whether it be about mental health, with what all you've gone through? What, just a quick synopsis of a message, what would you say?
The biggest message I can say is take care of yourself first.
Oh, preach.
Take care of yourself first. Put yourself
Preach.
first.
Can't pour from an empty cup.
No, and that means if you have to take time away for a little bit and take care of yourself, get your mind right, it brings everybody else together. It will make it so much stronger than trying to focus on the other person. I spent so much time on him that I lost myself. So take care of yourself first.
Be selfish.
There
Yes.
you go.
I
Yeah.
love it. Paige, that's incredible.
And for you, Matt?
I would echo a lot of that. And thank God I had a partner at the time that was willing to give me that. Because, like I said, I spent every single day in meetings, and I was just like, I had to get obsessed with recovery. And she understood that that's what I needed to do if we were ever going to get to the finish line.
I didn't understand that at first, though.
Did you miss her?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely I did. Like, I remember the first time that Sydney walked, I was in a meeting and I got that video via text. And I wanted to break down and cry, but at the same time I knew is where I needed to be at that moment. And it's like, man, this is kind of the price I pay for
Yeah, you
everything
had to
I
give
need
up that to get to where you are now. Yeah.
Basically, yeah. You know, anyone I ever talked to, and I work with a lot of people who are freshly sober, trying to get sober, or she works with a lot of women who are dealing with husbands, especially that are addicts, drug addicts, alcoholics. People will come to us and say, how do I fix this person? And I think I'd really like to echo what she said, is that you can't fix anybody. You could not have told me anything 10 years ago that would have made me go, oh crap, you're right. I got to stop this right now. Nothing. So what is it that you need in that moment, and take it. Whatever it is you need in that very moment, take it. So like Paige had mentioned, like take care of yourself. That's what she tells people who are struggling. They'll come to her and they think that they're going to get some really wise words about how they're going to fix their alcoholic husband, and they're going to tell him what he needs to be doing, and here's how we're going to get better. Instead, what she tells them is you need to detach with love.
Detach with love.
From that
Ooh, I like
situation.
that. Detach
And
with love.
Whatever you need right now. So if you need love, if you need support, you can get that. It doesn't have to be from him. You can find the help you need through other avenues. So sit down with a therapist and let's start working through some of this stuff. And it really is. It's like you're living your lives together, but almost at different paces.
Yeah.
I love the story you guys tell about, it's so hard for you to communicate what you need in that moment, because it's like, really, I got to come out with it. I got to put it in black and white
Shouldn't
for
you
you.
know?
Yeah.
But we have that same issue. It's like,
you?
I'm dumb. Like I don't, like, intuitively after you say it, I see that. And the more that we go through this, I see it.
But
it's-
I had to learn to communicate it to
Yeah.
you. And then now you know.
Well, and I think anger blocks a lot of that and
Without
makes
a
you
doubt.
dumb. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it's no doubt about it.
Sure.
it does without a doubt. But
Well, and that's a flex. That's what do you call it? A muscle. That's a muscle of his. Is when he gets frustrated, he goes to the farm. He's done it for his whole 30 years.
it's a reflex for him. Yeah.
And I don't think he invented it. I think his dad, his grandpa, his great grandfather, and so that was
in his
another.
bones.
It's in his bones, and so when we spoke, when we were really speaking, the good stuff, the stuff that we're good, we love each other. Let's talk about it. I said, I don't think you come from very many generations of men that put their wives on their value list, because it's just what farmers are taught is the farm comes first, and we got to put our nose to the grind. Is that what you say? Nose to the
Well,
grindstone?
in all fairness, too, I mean that 3 days. I mean that was our Super Bowl. I
Yeah.
mean that is
Yeah.
our peak I mean, when it's everything's, we're all in. I mean, everybody's giving all they got to make it happen.
Yeah.
So
and
it's bad timing.
Well, for sure. I mean, I talked to my brother about this, and I was like, I can absolutely see how it was 50-50. I can see it right down the center. How many things that we both could have done to do it differently. But what I wanted to say was, because we speak on here all the time about breaking generational curses. And so in that moment, I was just like, we're here to break a curse that has come from many generations. And maybe me begging and pleading and nagging for you to put me on that list, maybe instead I can convince you to put my mental health on that list. Because as a wife, I'm strong. I'm good. I like being alone a lot. There's times we don't have the kids and he's at the farm and I've got my movie and my fun food and stuff. And so I am a strong wife that can be independent, but my mental health is not a strong wife that can be independent. And so that's where we are, is he's agreed to put my mental health on that value set, because that evening he broke off the tractor and went to a track meet. And let me tell you what type of...
Oh, I bet that was fun.
Let me tell you what type of explosion that made.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Because he has no idea.
Yeah.
No idea. He thinks I'm proud of him for being a good dad, and I am proud of him for being a good dad. But read the room, my baby. Like, read the room. You've left me here. We're supposed to be out of town, and you cannot do anything because you can't, and you're at a track meet.
Yeah.
So that goes back to, you guys are wired a little bit differently. Paige and I wouldn't do that to y'all if there was a gun to our head. And so then we think, well, if we wouldn't do that to y'all with a gun to our head, does that mean y'all really honestly don't care for us? We equate it.
Right.
And it's not true. It's two totally different wiring translations.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. It reminds me of so I had a really hard time, not so much reading her, but validating her was really, really tough for me. She could get upset about something that I deemed was kind of dumb.
Sure.
That's the way I would put it in like the worst terms possible, is like, it's a really stupid thing to get mad about. Like, let's look at the reality here. Like, because I too have a job where it pulls me away some of the most inopportune times.
Yeah.
I work in freight, and the last couple of years in freight, I mean, all anyone did during the pandemic was sit their ass at home and click buy it now on Amazon. And that meant that I had to work 5 times harder than we ever have.
My gosh.
It was hell on earth.
Sorry, Matt.
It's all good.
Sorry, Matt.
It's all good now.
I did it too.
Things have recovered. Yeah, she was the worst. I'm like, would you stop? Freaking front porch is the reason I'm at the office till 7 o'clock at night. But, it's been a theme in our marriage for a long time. Like I've often said, like Paige is like a mafia wife at some points. Like she's like Carmela Soprano. Mm-hmm. Like if the phone rings, she just understands like, damn it, I lose him again,
Yeah.
And in some ways she knew what she signed up for, but in other ways it's like, I never really gave her the credit for what that takes.
Sure.
And validated that part of her.
How did you figure that out?
Validation was a really new thing for me. Therapy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
therapy together,
Yes.
him hearing her part.
Therapy together. So we do couples therapy, and it's wonderful. I look at therapy like people look at oil changes. Like you don't get an oil change because your car broke down. You get one so it doesn't.
Do you guys need to hear somebody say what we're saying? Like we say it over and over, but then
Sort of. I think for me anyway, it's I don't listen for shit. I don't listen. I don't listen. When she's saying the words, I don't have an active listening part of my brain that works like by default. So when she's talking, what I'm thinking, like my brain works like a lawyer's. I'm like, how do I defend this? How do I defend this?
I'm a debater.
So how do I defend this? And so as she's talking, I'm like, how do I shut this down to get what I want from this? How do I change her mind?
Which is the opposite of love.
It's not love at all. So validation was a very new thing for me, because there are some actions in a relationship that you don't necessarily want to condone, but validation and condoning are two very different things.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
That to me, making that distinction was like the key for me to really understand Paige and really understand how she thinks and how her mind works.
And a lot of times when you validate, you're doing the opposite of condoning
A lot
Yep.
of times, yeah.
A lot of
but
times.
To me, it was like,
because there's no tug of war.
no. And like, for me, it's like, I have to trust that she'll take this and like understand the lesson in it without me
Yeah.
having to tell her what the lesson is.
Sure.
It's very tough. It's very tough for me because I'm a control freak as well.
And also you're not in charge of her.
I'm not. She gets to feel however she needs to
Yeah.
feel. And, you know, that's a lesson that intuitively made sense
Yeah.
to me, but like putting it into practice was tough. So like,
Yeah.
so we too have generational curses. Like I work in a family business. I'm fourth generation in this thing, like great grandfather, dad, now me. It's not really what I ever wanted to do either. It's something that kind of came to me like, I want to almost like by default. It's like I graduated college and it was during the last recession. And it's like called my old man. I'm like, they're not hiring stockbrokers right now. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a stockbroker. I got a degree in finance. I wanted to go work on Wall Street, get a Series 7 license and go trade. And they weren't hiring. So I called them. I'm like, hey, can I get a job this summer? Because they ain't hiring people out here. He's like, yeah, come on up. And I stepped into this office that was running very
I was not
old-fashioned.
happy about this.
She was not. Like, she never wanted me involved in the family business. It was the last thing that she ever wanted me to do was to walk in that office and stay. I think in her mind, she heard the words, it's just for the summer, but knew that, like, I had signed my death certificate. So, like,
That's the worst.
I knew it was it.
I got in there and my dad had given me the leeway to make some decisions. He'd always trusted me. He knew I was smart. He's like, all right, come in here, see what you can figure out. And we put some processes in place and we went from being like a mom and pop shop working on like, you know, like carbon paper and like dot matrix printers to like, you know, we had some tech, we had some processes, we were running different. We had a sales branch at the company and it's like, we're growing, you know, and I liked everything. I liked feeling important. I liked being in it. I liked the money. I was making a hell of a lot more doing that than I would have been trading. And I'm like, now we are stuck. Now we can't leave. And that's always been a really sore point in our marriage and something we don't really address a whole lot on our podcast, but I'll talk about it on yours because
Is this where we get to fight?
no, I don't think let's try not to. Let's
fight,
see.
fight,
we could.
fight.
We could, but
I will say that her comment her smile has changed just a little.
hasn't it though? Hasn't it though?
Babe, you know how to read people?
I'm working on
Oh
it.
yeah.
So good.
No, like this is something that we haven't really been able to talk about because I don't think any of our family listens to our show, which I'm fine
Do you
with.
guys worry about that?
Sort of with this topic,
Is it in
sort
your
of
head, kind of?
at times,
Yeah,
but other
I get
times
it.
But
I'm
then
like,
we're like,
man, it is
we're
what it is.
authentic,
It
and
is what
it is. And
Yeah.
if it gets out there, we'll address it.
And we love you. We
Yeah.
love you.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah.
have some things we'd like to say.
The business piece of it's always been tricky though because I think for us it's always been extremely difficult because in a family business, like we talked about it downstairs when we were eating, it's like there's a lot of blessings, but there's a lot of curses.
And you
in
and
there,
I have
too.
had a conversation about it before too.
Man, it is tough. It is tough. So when things are good, they're good. When things are bad, there ain't nothing worse.
Yeah.
Man, it's easy to have a knockdown drag out with somebody and say, get the hell out of here, you're fired. Do that with your cousin. Do that with your brother. Do that with your father, your mother. It's a totally different conversation, right? So our families always operated on these very toxic terms. Like I say, it's my side of the family. We always have. Like money rules all, right? Cash rules everything around me. I've always said we're just white trash with money in so many ways. And
I love that.
I
Bowman.
mean, like my parents haven't been
humility.
married since 2001.
Yeah.
They haven't lived together since 2001. They're still married, y'all, because they own 50% of the businesses together, and because no one wants to split up that piggy bank. No one wants to have to cash the other out, and so we pretend like everything's okay. Holidays, we get together for Christmas. Like my dad has had other girlfriends, my mom's had other boyfriends, and they live their separate lives. And us being who we are, it's like, man, we just want some normalcy.
Sure.
Why do we deal with this? Because I sold out. I sold out for the cash. I sold out for the role, for the position. It's always been a sticking point in our marriage. And so like in talking about this stuff and working toward till the wheels fall off is really like, it's our way out. This is how we find something that's truly us that provides income at some point. I truly believe that a vision we have for it
Well,
will be
sure.
it'll be huge, and gets us away from that. But more than anything, like this is our deal. Like the family business has always been like my thing, and it's always been like this unwritten like you really sold your soul for this thing. Like this, you don't believe in any of the values. You don't believe in any of the stuff that's going on there. We sit there at Christmas, pretend like everything's cool because everyone's got nice presents and cash in their pocket. And it's been really tough. A lot of our fights revolve around that. A lot of our fights are about that. So for the longest time,
undertone.
yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's like
Authentic everywhere in your life, but right there.
Yeah.
basically
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it. And so like back to that conversation about like this unspoken stuff that goes on and like having to read her mind. Like I very much have to understand, like even just like I did with the addiction, like the torment that I've put her through because of this. And in some ways she's accepted it, but only because she loves me and only because it made things possible. But like anytime we have conversations about this, like you guys mentioned breaking generational curses, like we've done that more times than I can count.
Oh, yeah.
Like I'm the first one that stood up and said, I call BS on all of this. And I'm the only one that's ever said it to this point. So I'm the black sheep. I'm
Way
the
to
leper.
go, bud. Way to go.
I'm the one that's like, like this. And at some point, I even tried to leave. I tried to leave. I had a plan to leave. I was buying another business. We were buying another business. And I'm like, I'm out, y'all. I'm out. And you get reeled back in because at that point, all the customers are like, we ain't doing business with them. Like, I don't know your brothers. I don't know your parents, really. I just like you. So we're talking about, okay, now if I leave, then everyone's done. Like the whole thing just, now I can't leave.
Yeah, the pressure's on there.
Now it's like,
Yeah.
now I'm stuck. What do I do? So we decided to stay. It's like, we can make this work. We'll figure this out. But it's not always easy.
No.
And like, it's just, I tell people all the time, like when they come to us with some fairly simple problems, it's like, man, listen to what we go through on an average day. It's like, you guys, there's a solution here. I know there's a solution
Yeah.
here. It's
Yeah.
it's absolutely crazy, but authenticity is really at the nut of it all. If you can't sit there with your partner and have an authentic conversation like about how you feel, and we've been trained to do this via therapy. It's like, I feel, when we work through all that stuff. Like that's real life in our marriage. Like we worked through an episode last week, I think, and that's what we did. It was about boundaries.
Yeah.
It was about how to set boundaries and like the importance and the power of boundaries in your life. Like we don't have really strong relationships with some people in our family because there's boundaries there. And until some of these, and the boundaries aren't to control them. They're for us to protect
We
us,
have to
protect our
protect
children.
ourselves and our children.
Yeah.
Until those things are, handled, like it's going to stay there. That guardrail is going to stay in place right where it belongs because it's protecting everything.
Our pastor says that revival is not, everyone says the world needs to come back to Jesus. And he's like, that's not really all that true because the world hasn't been with Jesus. And revival is not for the world. Revival is for here, us, you.
Right.
And so he says, draw a circle right around your family and pray for a revival in that circle. And I love that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. It gives me goosebumps thinking about it. Like, yeah, it's so true.
Going back to you saying that, when you guys get to counsel with folks and the problems that they're having, a friend of mine was telling me this week that she works in hospice and there was a 20-year-old man that was going to go on and leave this world. And there was a line of 20 in the hall and they were one by one going in and telling him goodbye. And so this week I just have kept saying, I'm not in that line. I'm not in that line. I'm not in that bed waiting for them to come in, and I'm not standing in the line for waiting for my turn.
Right.
It adds a lot of perspective.
Oh, yeah, perspective's huge.
Yep.
Yeah,
It really is.
God, man, like, I think about that. Like, addiction's no small feat to, surmount. It's tough. It's really tough to get through. Like I said, 5% of people that try succeed. It's not because the program doesn't work. It's not because the things that we teach don't work. It's because people are really stubborn by nature. Really stubborn. I mean, talk about dropping the rope. Watch an addict try to drop rope with his drug or his bottle or whatever that might be. It's really tough to drop that rope. We work with people all the time, and it's like people will come to you with problems, and it's like, man, my bank account's empty. My job doesn't want me back. My wife moved out. And I think there was this guy in one of our groups. His name was David, and he was incredible. He'd been sober like 25 years. And it's like, well, David's over there with stage 4 cancer. He's about to leave his wife and kids behind. He's been sober for a long time now. He's helped thousands of men achieve it. I bet he'd trade places with you.
Right.
Gives you some perspective.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
damn, you're right. Okay, I'll
Right.
shut my mouth now and just listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Puts things in perspective
It
big time.
really does. It really does.
Paige, what keeps you going?
I told you, Matt. I told you.
Good.
What keeps you going and pushing and moving forward now versus back when things were the hardest?
Was this your question? No, it was.
Okay.
This was my question, Paige. I love this one.
Okay, well, I guess
I'll edit that out. Sorry.
I like it. Leave it.
You like a little selfishness?
Sure.
When I'm uncomfortable that I said it,
Do it.
go.
no. Well, actually, see, I'll get back to like my spirituality type of experience because I had a spiritual awakening about 5 years ago, I guess, whenever I started to have my really bad panic attacks. And I thought, there's something missing from my life because I was an atheist for most of my life. So I saw Matt, what he was doing, and he found God. And I thought, you know what? I need to look into this. There's something about this. There's something that's so beautiful that can come from this. So I started my, spiritual journey, and every day it just grows more and more and more. And that's really what keeps me going because I'm able to get into like this place of being present in the now and just being grateful and accepting and bringing all obstacles to me. And that just that's what keeps me going.
Love it.
That's awesome.
And that's
Amazing.
crazy. And
I
I
know.
bet that's crazy
Amazing.
for Matt to hear.
Amazing.
Guys, I'm listening. I'm watching her say this, and I'm like, what the hell? That's my wife saying this? That's
Right.
crazy.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I'm still fairly new to it compared to you. So he's way ahead of me on this journey. So this is where we're kind of, it's not perfectly
Different
even.
paces,
We're
yeah.
at different paces, but mine just keeps getting stronger and stronger, and I understand it so much more.
I think as soon as you're willing to
Let go.
the door for anyone to a spiritual life it starts cracked, right? You have to be interested enough to walk up to a
the
cracked
curiosity.
door. You're curious and you walk in, you kind of poke your head through. You find that each time that you find the willingness to push the door open further, that something answers and something will show you, new lessons, new light. So watching her walk up to that door, I was watching it from a distance and never pressuring, because I knew that it had to be a process of attraction, not promotion.
Right.
You don't find too many preachers standing out in the street screaming at the top of their lungs that are recruiting a whole lot of new members. You just don't.
Yeah.
A lot of times what you'll see is the light in someone's eyes as they're walking through adversity and go, man, how the hell did they do that and they're happy?
Right.
How are they always so happy? For me, that's what it was. It was like, this son of a bitch is so happy. I got to talk to him, figure out how.
Yeah.
And I picked their brain, and it was always the same answer every single time. I'm like, there must be something to this. And so I knew that if I was walking my path, eventually she'd get interested. And that's how it worked. I think she hoping against hope that she didn't have to go there at some point in her life, and then did. And then now I get to see the growth and just from a distance, just admire, what God's done in her life. It's been a crazy, crazy experience because it was a part of my life that I was convinced at some point early on that I was going to have to kind of keep to myself. Because how do you talk to someone about spirituality if they're not spiritual, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
It's like, I had this spiritual experience today. She look at you and kind of roll her eyes and let's go back to Netflix.
Yeah.
Well, the same question on atheism, did that same process affect you both being atheists, that one of you believed that and the other got there, or
Did that feel like a pull?
when you were young?
Man, when we were young, I think it was sort of something that I don't even know if we ever agreed to do it. We just kind of had the conversations and it's like,
Yeah.
how do you feel about this? And here's the deal, right? On the topic of spirituality, how does one become an atheist? I don't think, by its pure definition, I was never atheist. I was agnostic. And agnostic at its Latin root means without knowledge. Agnostic just simply means without knowledge because I just didn't know. I didn't know enough about it to really make an educated decision. I'd never had a personal experience with it. And so when I was getting sober, it was described to me in this way. And I don't mean this in any demeaning way, but it was like religion and spirituality are two very different things. Religion's for people who are afraid to go to hell. Spirituality's for folks who've already been there before and don't intend on going back.
I'm going to write that down.
And so,
will you remember it?
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
no, I
Okay.
say
Yeah,
it all
he
the
says
time.
Will you
lot.
write it, babe?
So religion is at its very core. Religion is just simply the rituals and the stories that accompany a spiritual experience that someone else has had. And it's faith that John had the experience that he had when he wrote about it. It's the experience that Luke had the experience that he had when he wrote about it. Where spirituality is truly one-on-one with God. Like, you're in the operating room and he is working on you.
Yeah, right.
It's a different feeling. And so for me, faith was just never going to be there. Like, I'm not just going to believe John because John said so, because my entire life experience up to that point in my life has shown me that people lie
Sure.
and people will deceive you. And even the people closest to you, even those that gave birth to you, will harm you in ways you couldn't imagine.
Sure.
So I didn't have a hell of a lot of trust in people. And I think that she very much felt the same way. She'd
Right.
seen a lot of this unfold.
Right.
I can't trust my own mother. How the hell am I going to trust this dude who wrote a book 7,000 years ago?
Sure.
It's a very jaded way of looking at
Sure.
it. But like I said, God does not make too hard of terms with those that seek him. And so
Sure.
I was told when I got to AA that you don't have to necessarily believe in everyone's conception of God.
Sure.
Did you know that you can have your own? I'm like, wait, what do you mean? That's a thing?
Right.
Like, no
Who said?
way.
Who
Yeah,
said?
exactly. Like, who said? Like, no, they told me
love
it's supposed
it.
to be like this. They're like, no. Spirituality, it's a mountain. God's at the top. You can walk up the backside. You can take a donkey up there. You can ride a horse up the front side too. And we can arrive at the same place. We can come to
Right.
know him in different ways,
Sure.
in our own ways. But I believe it's always evolving, and he always reveals more. And I believe at the end of the day, we're looking at the same thing. And
Oh,
so
sure.
it's been really interesting for me to walk my path in the way I did.
Yeah.
And then for her to walk hers. And I have had very little influence, I think, like from a direct standpoint, because she studies in her own way. She prays in her own way. But we get to the same point.
Yeah.
And our marriage went from being like, when you're younger, you're atheists. I think that there is something missing from that relationship, like of truly being close to one another and so
Okay.
vulnerable to the point where it's like, I got on my knees and I prayed today and I was scared and
Yeah.
I asked for the fear to be removed, stuff like that. Like, we're not
Right.
having those kinds of conversations back there. It's all just self-will driven. It's like,
Yep.
how do I figure this out? How do I exert myself enough to get a resolution that favors me? When we started having spiritual conversations, I felt like there could never be another person in the world that I was closer to ever.
Oh, love it.
Like, it was, our relationship was now bulletproof. Like, there's nothing
come
that we
at
can't
us.
walk through.
I know-
Exactly.
one of my favorite things in this life is that just because somebody doesn't have a relationship with the Lord does not mean that they are not created by our God.
Absolutely.
And I think we miss out on that. Like, we section people into different categories and we forget. And so one of my favorite things about this life, because my best friend from high school, maybe would be considered agnostic. I'm not exactly sure where she would be today. She pushes me closer to my God than because of her love for me, her unconditional, her ear, she's interested in who I am and she's interested in my well-being. And so she pushes me to my God. And I love that. And I love that for you because I bet there were so many moments where Paige, still claiming to be atheist, pushed you to your Lord.
Without a doubt. Like, I think when you see someone going through that, it's like, how can I not see the beauty in it now?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, as I watch her struggle through something and I know that there's a solution there that is spiritual.
Yeah.
And I can turn around.
You're like
and,
racing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like, I can turn around and
I got to talk to you about something.
go straight to it. And it's like,
Yes.
I've got a resolution. It
Sure.
enforces it. It just reinforces it,
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was tough. It's like, would you just sit down and have a conversation with me about this? Because I promise you it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it might have happened at some point where you have these conversations when you're ready to have them.
Sure.
You can't have them before you're ready.
Yeah.
Like, the conversation was had with me long before I was ready to get sober.
Yeah.
I was told to get sober like, years before I got sober. I wasn't there yet, man. I just wasn't there yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ready.
I think that, when you're ready to have that conversation, thank God the right person's usually there to have it with. Sometimes
and
it's not
thank
for
God
others.
other things didn't occur. Thank God you
Yeah.
didn't wake up in a hospital. Thank God
No kidding.
the kids are
No.
fine. Thank God the kids were very young
Yeah.
and don't remember that stuff.
Yeah,
right?
like my kids have never seen me drunk. My kids have never seen me drink. My kids have never seen me
how
do anything
cool.
illicit. Like they've never seen their dad that way.
But
which
they know.
they know all about it, which I think is very important because there is a genetic component to this deal. Like,
I'm sending
So-
this show to Sydney anyways.
please do. Like if you go back to my family lineage, like both my parents struggled with this. I guess it would have been my grandfather's cousin died from this. Great grandfather died from this. Like it runs in our family, and so I look at my kids and I'm like, as much as I don't want to harm you, as much as I'm going to try to make your environment such that you won't have to, it won't be triggered by your environment. I still know it's in them, and they could make a poor decision one day that just leads to this road. But the beauty is that they'll know exactly what to do. They'll know that there is a solution. They'll have hope that it's not just futile, that there is a way out. You know,
I can't wait to see 2 humans raised by these 2.
it'll be interesting
gosh.
to
I
see.
really can't. I just can't. I mean, what a lottery! What a parent lottery you win when you get these 2.
They
These
kind of
whole
hate it
people.
though. Like,
They're so cool, though. Already, they're so cool.
what's hilarious is that, so like, I mean, we're not clinical therapists, we're not licensed therapists, but I would argue that you could sit me in a room with a therapist, and by the end of it, they would say like, these people have been through enough to know
Yeah.
exactly what we
Sure,
talk about and what we
sure.
deal with, and so
They're writing down what you're saying.
basically,
Yeah.
yeah. So like we work one-on-one with people, like mentorship coaching,
Sure.
right? And we do the same with our kids, and they freaking hate it.
Don't
like,
get therapy on me.
Stop coaching
Sure.
me. You know, like I don't need to
Sure.
hear this right now. Like Sydney's at times, she's like, I just want to vent. I don't need solutions.
Yes.
I actually had a conversation with her the other day, and I said, I'm not going to give you solutions all the time anymore. I'm actually going to listen to you and just say, oh, okay.
love
Which
it.
we should
and
know
just
better.
listen. And when I'm
Yeah.
not going to tell you, because they're not going to learn.
Well,
Think-
you don't
think
want to
about how it works in a
gatekeep
marriage.
the answer.
No.
You don't want to, but then at the same time, you can't fix it for them.
No. And you think about a marriage, how many times has it ever worked that you go, I got just a fix. Shut up and listen real quick while I tell you how to fix the
Yeah.
problem you're having.
Yes.
It's like, nope.
I just need to be heard sometimes.
Y'all first say, calm down.
Yeah,
Calm
that
down.
works. That always works, right?
Calm
hell no.
down.
Never ever tell an angry woman
Calm
to
down and let me tell you the answer, what you need to do.
Yeah. God, man, that works well, right, Jay?
I always tell her easy tiger.
Oh yeah.
She really likes that one.
Okay. That's
Man.
triggering.
Oh
That's
yeah.
very triggering.
I can imagine. Yeah. Like how many times, stop yelling, and then they yell back louder. You know, it's
Yes.
like that never works.
One word would describe you, how you tackle life.
Oh, that's good.
One word to describe how I tackle life. Improv.
Oh, I like that. We already talked about that
Yep.
at dinner.
Improv.
Yeah.
All right, Paige, go.
I have no idea.
What's the opposite of improv? What's the antonym?
Let me see if I can
Okay, no.
elicit some response for you.
What? Like,
No, if you've got one, get one. She's
No,
she's
yeah,
bad
let
at this
Paige
game in
go.
general.
I am. I'm
Paige,
really
you
bad at
go.
this.
I could do it for Paige.
One word,
How do you tackle life?
acceptance.
That's good.
Yeah,
Paige,
that's
you
a good one.
win. You win.
Yeah, that's a good one.
She won.
And she's a thinker.
That's a great one.
Yep, she is.
What about you guys? I want to hear
Amazing.
yours.
His would be no hill for a climber, right?
Head on, yep.
Head on. He's like, well, we lost that field. I'm like, how much was that? He's like, cool meal. Cool.
Not really, but go ahead.
Just joking, but there's just not much that phases him, and I'm sure a lot phased him before I got to him, but nothing phases him now. Not anything. Mine would be, I just walk in love. I just think there's just no wrong answer when you lead with love. So I think that would be my one word.
I think it defines you perfectly too.
Yeah, it
Thanks,
does.
When I think
Matt.
about
It
you,
does.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
like your
I-
spirit is very much that.
I never want anything to hurt anyone.
Right.
No one. Like I never want anything that I've said or done or who I am to ever cause anything dark on anyone else. I just want to be a light.
You know what my favorite thing's always been about you?
What?
Is so the first time you meet Jessie, you're like, she. I wouldn't say you're imposing, but you're taller than average, right? You're like, what are you, 6 feet?
Yeah.
Close to right at 6 feet.
5'11".
So she's 6 feet and like I wouldn't say imposing, but like she commands presence. She has a presence to her, and then her voice is just the sweetest,
Best voice ever.
sweetest
Thanks.
voice you've ever heard.
Thank you.
And so my brain puts this together. Like in my mind, I can kind of draw a picture like, okay, this is like the sweet teacher type. And then the thing about Jesse, though, is that Jesse is like low key effing funny.
Hilarious.
Like so funny and like dark sometimes where I'm like, did she just, dude, she just made like a really funny joke. Like, did you hear that? Like, it was like hilarious. I'm like, no, Jesse's like actually really hip. She's not like this like lonesome country girl who has no education. Like, she's super smart, and like witty and funny.
Girl.
Yeah, like it, and
so.
it just I love that dichotomy in your personality where it's
Thank
like
you.
you come across as like you could be a comedian. Like, I'm serious because I think that's the bit is like you think she's like just super like innocent, sweet and all that, and then she will say things and like be able to just drill you down to like one word so easily, and it cracks me up every freaking time.
He calls it undressing. Like
It's
an undress.
hilarious, man.
Pretty big dose of smartass in there too.
Big time.
Oh yeah.
And you just don't expect it at first.
But I mean it in love.
Oh, I know, and
But-
that's the thing is that the foundation
you.
of every bit of it, like back to your point, is love.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it is that you could tear me a new one and we'd be laughing, you'd give me a hug, and I would know that it came from like the funniest
Yes.
and most sincere
But not-
I love you place.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But not a lot of people know. So I was taught by my dad that if you love someone, you tease them. And so
For sure.
my whole entire life, I mean, I love you, but a lot of times someone's running away hurts. And I'm like, what did I say?
What the hell was that?
No, I just said that was the stupidest shirt I've ever seen on anybody in my whole life.
You don't get the joke?
But I thought that was really funny. You know, no, I'm just teasing. But a lot of time, I'm teasing you to absolutely love you, and it's made a lot of people run for the hills.
Oh man,
Yeah,
that's my favorite
okay.
part.
Thanks. It's okay. It's how I find my people.
Yeah.
That's
It's
exactly it.
Exactly.
Who stays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's who stays or who comes with a comeback.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's greatn't I love
Thanks,
that.
Matt. No, I've never had someone speak over me in a while, so it's really nice of you to do that. No, not. I didn't mean interrupt me. I meant like tell me who I am.
Gotcha.
Bob Goff always says, tell people who they are, and for you to sit there and like pour that love into me and like say I know you and I found favor in you, it's really nice.
Yeah.
Really, really nice.
I mean, just as you describe yourself, I couldn't help but bring it up because it's
Thanks.
so true. Like, just
Thanks.
No.
you go at the world with love, but in the most hilarious and joyous way possible.
Yes.
Thank you.
Like-
That's nice.
Like we talked about, like you see something in other people, like what makes them shine, and it makes me curious. I know that faith has always been so important to you.
Yeah.
And I know that's a big part of it, you know? And so there is something there. There is something to faith. There is something to spirituality and the path that we all walk. It's like,
Yeah.
at the same time, you know, you seem so happy-go-lucky, but we can also have a serious conversation about
Very.
mental health
We
and
don't
like
do
what you
small
struggle
talk.
with. No, we don't
No.
either. Like,
Yeah.
we suck at small talk.
No, I mean me
Yeah.
and you. Me
Yeah.
and
No.
you, me
Yeah.
and Matt and me and Paige, we do not do small
Nope.
talk ever. Not even on text. And so you reminded me so much when you were talking about this part where you felt like you were going to die. And I've been there. I've been there. I thought I was such a naive, you know, I really was raised that I thought, I was kind of raised opposite. I thought that the moment you sinned, kind of a hand come and pulled you down to hell. You just especially the big sin. If you did one of those real big sins, you just went on to hell, just went there. And so I never tried it. I never would even get anywhere close to it. And so when I did come unhinged and had my identity crisis in my 30s, I really thought the next step was death. And so once you find out that he doesn't hate you to where he wants to kill you, he actually loves you so much he digs you. And that's confusing. That's
wild.
just absolutely confusing. But my example of that with skin on is Jay. Is I can tell Jay the meanest thing that I'm going to tell you after the show that I said. And our song is Chris Stapleton, Fire Away, because he knows that that is the roaring waters of the inside of my heart trying to come out, and he's been assigned with the duty. He's so lucky. He's so lucky and blessed. He's been assigned with the duty to receive that, to let me have some type of release from the trauma. And he's my man. Like, I mean, I'd never seen anyone see the darkest parts of me and just say, God, I love that. I love you. I love you so much. And, you know, it might push him away, like we said, but he's always right back. And that's how I know he's mine. He's never leaving.
Yeah.
Not ever.
I think that as a personality, you strike me as someone who just does not get phased by much at all. Like, you will take anything. Like you said, like you lose a field, you're like, yeah, I lost a field today.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good. And she can bring you some of the, you know, some really terrible things she's been going through, and you're able to sit there and process it. And I don't know if the stoicism just is a natural part of your face, if it's just like your resting face, but I can just see it in you that you just don't get
calm.
phased.
Yeah,
man.
that's a generational deal too.
Is it?
Yeah, it's generational.
I love that about you. You can just sit there and just talk to Jay and just know that, like, we've had some heavy conversations.
Yeah.
Like when I was going through that stuff in business, especially. And you're just kind of hearing it. You're like, yeah, it's processing it. And I know that you understand what I'm saying and you're hearing it. But at the same time, I can see it in your eyes. Like, you knew even for me that it was going to be okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I can feel what you're feeling and still know it's going to be okay.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything.
We're definitely opposites, like you said.
Oh, yeah.
I'm kind of running down the street naked.
Yeah, I'm that guy too.
You are not.
No, without a doubt. Oh, yeah,
We're
man.
running together.
For sure.
Matt.
Yeah. Hand in hand like this. Streaking.
We're
Man.
going through the quad.
Yeah. Such a good movie.
Come on.
Old school for those of you who
going
don't know.
streaking.
It's so great. No, yeah, it's me for sure. She's so like structured and like she gets like
Yeah.
I'm wild. I'm the kind of guy that wakes up in the morning and I'm like, what's
Yeah.
next? You know?
Yeah.
Improv to improve, as we say.
I like it.
So real quick, guys, go over your podcast for us one more
Yeah,
time, name
please.
and anywhere people can find
Yes.
it and
For sure.
anywhere they
What
wanted
it's
to
about.
contact you.
So the podcast, it's available on all podcast platforms. It's called Till the Wheels Fall Off. We explore our relationship over the last 20 plus years. We explore addiction, recovery. We explore marriage, relationships, parenting,
Mental health.
We work through people with tools. You can check us out on Instagram. We've got an Instagram. And our IG's got a link tree where you can find just about everything. It's at TWFO_couple. So it's at TUFO couple with an underscore.
Love it.
Or you can go to our website, www.tufocouple.com. TWFOcouple.com. It's
I'll
got
put all that on there too.
awesome. It's got our blog, and we do keep it pretty current. It's got, you know, we're on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and we're actually developing something really cool right now, which is a community. So something that we've worked through and found at the core of anything we've ever been through and accomplished. Like when it was fitness, there was a community. That's how I met Jesse. It was a community at CrossFit. It was a community of fitness. When I was getting sober, there was a community. It was through AA. It was through recovery centers and through mental health. There are, you know, through therapy and through that tribe that you kind of seemingly find as soon as you start to walk that path. Other people who are into it, you have a community, and so we've begun the process of starting our own community for people who are working through things because
Iron sharpens iron.
basically like and we're at the center of like the hub, right? So people hear the podcast, they'll reach out to us, and it's like, I'm going through this. What do you recommend? What do I do? And then we'll get the same phone call from someone halfway across the country. It's like, we need to get these people together. Like, they're working through the same stuff. Like, they need to know each other. So we're putting together a community to do that via Facebook.
Neat.
And that's our next venture. That's gonna be
one
really
big
fun.
one or little small ones?
One big one.
One big
that's
one?
the plan.
Okay.
Yep. And then it'll have guides in it, all this stuff. And it's
Can people
100%.
ask to be in it on Facebook?
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes available, I don't know when this comes out, when this episode's planned to come out, but we should have it done by, we're hoping mid-April.
Yeah, I think
Mid-April.
this will come out on Wednesday.
Okay, so
On what's today?
today is
People won't know what Wednesday I'm talking about.
Sunday, the
The-
26th. So
So
it'll be
either-
Wednesday, is that the 30th or 29th?
29th.
29th, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Thanks, Matt.
sometime mid-April, second week of April, something like that. We're hoping to have this thing functioning, running. You should be able to find it on our website or
Great.
IG. looking
Great.
forward to that. We worked really hard on it so far.
Yeah, y'all are doing a great job.
Yeah, congratulations,
you.
y'all, on everything you've done
Appreciate
and
it.
where you've
Thank
gotten
you.
to
We're
in life
honored
and
to
what
be
all
with
you've
y'all.
been through for sure.
Yeah,
Same.
that iron sharpens iron. That's a big deal to us in this four sitting here.
Yep.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you again for being here tonight and for your time, and enjoyed getting to spend it with you.
Thank
Thanks
you
so
for
much
having
for
us over.
having
This
us.
has been
That was
amazing.
So good. Oh my
We love
gosh.
it.
Babe, what else you got?
It's like they have their own podcast.
Maybe so.
I mean,
This is
they're
our-
really good at it.
This is our first time being guests on
For
the podcast,
real?
I think. Isn't
Paige
it?
said she was nervous, but she
Yes.
never seemed
This is
nervous.
our first time being guests.
Can we be y'all's first guests?
We could do that.
Okay.
Once we figure out
Next
how the
year.
board works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
That'd
else
be
you got,
awesome.
babe?
I wanted to, when he said the 29th or the 30th, I remembered that Kim's going to have her last surgery on the 30th. And so when you guys hear this show, Kim's our best friend that lives in Durango that's had 9 surgeries on her face for skin cancer.
Oh my gosh.
Paige, you've seen her on my best friend.
yeah.
And so she was in last weekend for the rodeo, and she's going to have her last surgery. This surgery is to go in, and they had recreated a nostril for her, and it's so thick that she can't breathe. And so they're going to try to thin it out and then help a little bit of the scarring on her cheek. She looks incredible.
Yep.
So yeah, if you guys hear this now and just throw her up in prayer, we'd really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yes, we will.
Yeah.
Well, babe, as the song says, the road goes on forever and the party never ends.
I love you.
I love you too.